Have you ever found yourself sitting in a meeting and wondering, am I even in the right place? Or what they're talking about, does it have anything to do with the work or the contribution I make? Or perhaps the meeting's over. All the planning that was done in there seems to be done and you think it's all wrapped up and complete. You return to your desk and you start working on what you consider to be the real work, only for the phone to ring, summoning you back to the room to just put the final touches on the plan. Or perhaps, maybe the planning part went so well and you felt really good about it. You wrote your goals on the wall and everybody said, yep, that's what we're going to get together and do. But 6 months later, you're sitting at your desk and you just think for a moment about what happened to those great plans, all those charts we put on the wall, and you find yourself growing in frustration. If you answered yes to any of these things, feel confident knowing you're not alone. To address the problem, we've come up with what we call the pie chart. Now, our pie chart stands for plan, implement, and evaluate. And these three things are done at three levels. The first level is the organization level. This is where senior leaders get together and they talk about what's the mission and vision of our organization? What do we want to achieve? What are the competencies we need to have in place? What are the values we want to live out? What are the goals that we want to accomplish next year or the next 3 years or the next 5 years? And all of these things become part of the strategic plan. Now the plan can't stop there, otherwise it's just sitting on a shelf and no one even knows about it. It has to come down to the team level because organizations are nothing more than the results of teams working together. At the team level, teams come up with what we call implementation plans. And these implementation plans talk about what's the purpose of the team, what are their priorities and their plans to make that happen. Remember, teams can't look out 3 to 5 years very easily because the work is right in front of them. So for a team, their priorities might be 6 months or a year out, but they lead to the accomplishment of the strategic plan. Now you have to take it down one level further, and that's the individual level. And at the individual level, we're talking about the individual employees in an organization, the front line of the organization, if you will. And the front line is the critical component of any organization. This is the component that faces your customers directly. This is the component that gives your presentations, reads your budget, executes your mission. And at the front line, we come up with performance plans. This is where the individual employee and their supervisor talk about what are the unique contribution that those individuals are going to make to drive the team's plan and ultimately the organizational strategy. Now, planning is important, don't get me wrong, but that's not the end of it. It then goes into implement. In implement, we're talking about how are you going to make these things happen. We do 3 key things in implement. First of all, we talk about the projects. What are the key projects we need to execute with excellence in order to drive the goals forward? What's the quality we need to achieve, the timeline we need to meet, and the cost we need to live within? Secondly, we talk about processes. Every organization has a key process. So what's the key process of your organization, and how do we improve upon that in order to achieve our goals? And then the third leg of the stool is people development. We can't just execute projects and processes and leave the people behind. We need to continually improve our people and develop them deliberately. Now, it doesn't end there. It's not just about implementing, although some organizations think, well, if we put together a plan and we just get it in motion, things will work out. We know what measure gets done. So at the organization level, we talk about dashboards. What do senior leaders need to look at consistently to ensure that the plan is on track? At the team level, we're talking about what do teams need to get together around and look at to ensure they understand how well they're executing on their priorities. And at the individual level, we're talking about the performance plan, where the individual supervisor or manager, the boss if you will, sits down with that individual employee and says, how well are you doing at accomplishing the goals you set out to accomplish, and what can I do to help make that happen? Not that long ago, I was talking to a client and she said to me, Patrick, I don't think it really matters if I get hit by a bus or not. I don't think anybody around this organization would even notice. You know, that's hard to hear. And the pie chart is simple and it makes sense and it changes organizations, but more importantly, it changes individuals because they start to see that what they're doing, their voice, their contribution is heard, and different results are achieved. You know, in the end, the final analysis, they won't remember 2-3 years from now if their goal was to grow a business by $1 million or increase margin a certain way or execute their budget differently. They won't remember those things, but they'll remember what it feels like to be on a team and an organization that cares and wins. And the pie chart allows you to set up for that type of success.